All right, welcome everybody to our promotional materials and CalFresh branding webinar. I'm here with Emily and Naomi, and we're going to kind of go over some of these different topics. So first, we're kind of going to remind you that we are recording this webinar. So we will upload this to our YouTube page, and then it'll also be on our website, along with lots of other great resources. So we encourage everyone to check out our website because there's a lot of great things that you can find answers to, and just great resources on there for CalFresh outreach and basic needs efforts. So we're going to get started here. So some of the outcomes for this webinar are going to include just getting some ideas about promotional materials and what is allowable versus unallowable on the CalFresh outreach contract. We're also going to kind of go over what you may face on your campus or at your organization as far as some requirements and timelines. Every campus is a little bit different, but just understanding some of those kind of things to be aware of will be helpful. We'll also talk about like the actual ordering process, understanding the CalFresh branding guidelines, and then a quick snippet about a requirement for the Justice for All poster. So yeah, the first thing we're going to do is actually start with a poll. So we're going to have everybody get ready here, and I'm going to launch the poll, and you pick the answer that you think is correct. So everybody go ahead. We'll give you a few minutes to answer the poll question. All right, we're getting some answers coming in here. Looks like D so far is in the lead, but A is quickly just slightly behind. Give about a few more seconds. All right, almost neck and neck for A and D. I'm going to end the poll here. So it looks like D did win out with 53%, but A was 42% as well. So I'll let Naomi maybe talk a little bit about this as we transition.
Yeah, so thank you for participating in that poll. That was our first time doing a poll on Zoom. And those of you who answered D, you were correct. All of those above are actually unallowable. So yes, A is unallowable, but also B and C. I just want to remind everybody really quick that we are also monitoring the chat box, so that if you have questions as we're talking through any of this, feel free to type them into the chat box and we're happy to answer them. We could also unmute your line too if you have a question that you would rather talk through, and just feel free even to just let us know that in the chat box and we can help you unmute your line. So based on that, we're going to go through a few examples of some unallowable and allowable costs just as a few reminders, and then go into a few kind of more tricky topics in terms of what we can purchase with these CalFresh outreach funds. And so like we just had in that poll, you'll notice that food was one of the items that was unallowable. So as a reminder, these are the things that cannot be purchased with this CalFresh outreach funding. And anything that's listed on this as unallowable means that it can't be counted towards state share or federal share. And so the common things that are unallowable that we get questions about a lot are food, swag, which are those giveaways that everybody gets, incentives to fill out applications, so you're not allowed to provide things to people in order to make them want to sign up, and then also radio, TV, and billboard advertisements are not allowable. But there are a lot of other promotional materials that are allowable and can help support your outreach and your project. I know that a lot of us have been talking with you all one-on-one very recently about kind of how to spend some of these funds this summer to get you prepped for fall, and also to just get some activities happening over the summer. So as a reminder, operating expenses, which includes phones and office supplies, is allowable. Computers and tablets and any other computing devices, printers, those are allowable as long as they are in your CalFresh outreach budget. travel to conduct CFO activities or to go to meetings related to CFO are also allowable, again, as long as it's in your budget. Printing items for pre-screening forms, flyers, any type of application assistance printing that is needed, and then also outreach materials. And this is the one that we're going to spend quite a bit of time on today. So things like signs and tablecloths, all of those are common allowable items that we see people purchasing often. We'll go through a little bit more too in terms of looking at your budget to see if you have these things, and making sure that if you have questions about that, of who it would be good to connect with. One question we get often is, what about pens and stickers and notepads and t-shirts? Are these things allowable? These are the ones that gets really murky in terms of whether or not this is allowable. So as a reminder, back to that last slide, swag was listed as something that's unallowable. And so that stands for stuff we all get. In California, there's actually a ban on swag for any funding. And so this is a requirement that is specific to California, that you are not allowed to purchase incentives, not incentives. You're not allowed to purchase items that are just going to be handed out to everybody. So for example, if you're doing a tabling event and wanted to have pens that you were handing out to people to essentially say, that said CalFresh on them, that would not be an allowable purchase on this funding because it would be considered swag. Same thing with stickers and notepads and t-shirts. If those are just being handed out to people, they are not allowable. But there are some instances where you can be purchasing these things and it is allowable. So anytime you're using any of those items for your staff, that would be an allowable use of these funds. So if you wanted to purchase t-shirts that identified your staff as application assisters or outreach staff, that is absolutely a great use of these funds. Same thing with like pens and notepads. If those are things that your staff are using either in the office or out in the field, absolutely those are allowable. Things like stickers would generally be considered swag unless they're being used in a way that they're being, for example, attached to another item that is then promoting CalFresh. So say if you have paper bags in your pantry that you use to fill up, students can use them to fill up with food. If you wanted to put stickers on those bags that had CalFresh outreach information and maybe your location or your phone number or your website, that is allowable. Other than that, if things are being given out, that is considered swag. However, the one other caveat I have to that is that you can pay for the printing of those items with this funding. So if it is being used to promote CalFresh outreach and you're wanting to print your information on things like pens, you can't pay for the pens themselves, but for the printing of the pens you could pay for. This is probably the trickiest item that we're always talking about, is what is considered swag and what is considered promotional materials. And so if you have specific things that you want to purchase, a great person to reach out to is your fiscal analyst. And so that would be myself, Naomi, or Kathleen Johnson or Amy Reeson. And we would be more than happy to talk through those specifics with you on an individual basis if you have specific questions of whether or not something's allowable, because it does get really, there's a lot of gray area in there. So on this next slide, we're hoping just to do another little activity with you all. Before we get to that, I'm going to answer this question. How can you purchase the printing? Most vendors would like for us to purchase the items with verbiage on it, if that makes sense. And that's a great question. So what you would need to try to figure out is if they can separate out those costs for you and identify them on whatever backup. So it would likely be an invoice. And so that would be a request from the vendor, is to separate out the cost of the item aside from the cost of the printing. And that way that printing can be identified as that cost of printing that information. And that's the part that you would be able to then report in your fiscal reporting. If you have any trouble with that, we'd be more than happy to kind of talk through that process with you one-on-one if that would be helpful. Great, I'm glad that answered the question. So on this slide, we have a picture of outreach happening on our campus, and we have a lot of different things going on in this picture, but we're hoping what you can do is type into the chat box with which of those things in this picture that you're seeing that are allowable expenses to use these CalFresh outreach funds for. So we'll give you just a couple of minutes to take a look at the picture and then start typing into the chat box. Great. That is all looking great. Good job answering. So yeah, I'm seeing the t-shirts are showing up. Yes. The tablecloth. Yes. The forms. I'm seeing stickers show up a few times. I think they're seeing the, I think you all are seeing the logo on our CHC shirts. Those are actually printed on the shirt, but I think that's what you all are referring to. And so yes, that's allowable. The printing of things and the forms, the pens that are being used for staff to fill stuff out. Yes, great job, everyone. Clipboards, staff t-shirts, tablecloths. And so the big one in this picture that's unallowable are those food items. So I can't remember, I'm assuming probably we got this donated, Emily?
Yes, I think this is in combination with some other separate funds that we have on campus through our work study or our IRA, instructional related activities. That's a mouthful. And so when I talk a little bit later, I will mention on how we pair different funding streams, that we use what we have through the CalFresh contract and then try to look for and supplement with other funding to complement what we're doing. So we can have the tastings, we can have water, maybe we can have some swag, but again, that is different and separate funding from our CalFresh contract.
Yeah, thank you. And then as a reminder too, right, those items that are considered swag, if you have a way to get those in other, if you have donations or if you have other funding, it's an allowable activity. You're just not allowed to pay for it with these funds. So that's a lot, that clarification we like to provide often too, because these are great ways to get people to come to your table and show up so that they see what you're doing. It's just not something that's allowed to be, that these CalFresh outreach funds are allowed to be used for. The one thing that you have to be really careful about though is incentivizing people to fill out applications. So swag is absolutely okay to be handing out, again, if you're not using these funds, as long as you're just giving it out to anybody who's walking by. We have to be really careful though that we're not handing things out specifically to make somebody want to fill out an application. Thanks for participating in that. Okay, so we've talked some about what's allowable, what's not allowable, but I know it's also usually pretty vague and general in the way that we talk about it. So how do you know then if something is allowable or not? A great first place to look is your CalFresh outreach budget. So anything that has already been approved in your budget is an allowable cost. So if it's listed in there, great. If you're not sure about something, we also have a Q&A doc on our website that has a lot of these details kind of broken down, especially related to swag and that distinction between what is allowable and what is considered swag. And I'll pull that up really quick for you just in case you haven't seen it. But the link is on our website, and then this document has a lot of different questions related in it related to both program questions and some fiscal questions. And so there is quite a bit about allowability in here because we get a lot of questions about allowability. But again, it's also pretty general. So if there are specifics that you're wondering about, the great person to reach out to is going to be your fiscal analyst. We are more than happy to answer those questions and talk through those one-on-one with you about specific items. Back to what I was mentioning a few slides ago, the two in particular that get kind of tricky are travel and computing devices. So like you've probably heard from us before, most of the time the budget revision process, so if you're wanting to add or change your budget, add something to or change your budget, it's really easy and we can help you with that process. And most of the time we at CHC are able to then process and approve those budget revisions internally. A couple exceptions to that are if you don't already have computing devices listed in your budget, or if you don't already have specific travel listed in your budget, those are things that the California Department of Social Services has to approve. And so it just makes the process take a little bit longer. We have had some subcontractors wanting to add in specifically computers to their budgets at this point in the year. And so we have been able to communicate that with CDSS, and so far they've been approving those. But as it gets closer to the end of the year, that's going to be harder to do. So if you don't already have those in your budget, and it's something you want to purchase in this federal fiscal year, which ends the end of September, then please reach out to us as soon as possible to let us know, and we can figure out if we can make that work. All of these other items, if they're in your budget already, great. If they're not, we can help you with that. So if you're realizing that there are some of these things that we're talking about that you want to purchase and they're not in your budget, we'd be more than happy to go through that process with you. In general, if you have enough in the category that they're going to be going into, we're not concerned about you moving forward with those purchases. But if you need to move money around, so for example, if you have money left over in personnel but want more in promotional materials, then we can help you with that budget revision process, just to make sure that you have enough money in every category to cover those costs. I know from the conversations I've been having, a lot of you are using the summer to kind of prep to get up and really rolling next year. And so some of those promotional items are really helpful at this point in the year. And some of you had a lot more in staffing than you really needed. So if you need to move money around, we can absolutely help you with that process. And also are always more than happy to answer questions about allowability. So like Emily was just mentioning a minute ago, that it's great. So there are some things that are unallowable, but sometimes they're also still really helpful to have those items available in order to help with outreach. And so there are other types of funding that some of you have and that we have also that we've used, including donations of things in order to help with that promotion. And so we just wanted to throw that out there, that are there activities that some of you all are doing, just to kind of give some others ideas of what are those other unallowable CalFresh outreach items that you maybe have been using other funding and donations, but that you have been finding to be helpful to promote CalFresh. So we're hoping you could just type in the chat box if you have any suggestions for others, for either items or the other types of funding that you might be using for these activities. And I see food from our farm store on campus, which is a great one. I mean, that's, I feel like we find food is always something that draws college students in, especially. Oh, cookbooks, that's a great one. Anything else from our campus that you would say?
We will grab food from the pantry, perhaps. So we'll partner with them and ask them to do a pop-up pantry in partnership with our outreach event. That's how we get food quite often, is we'll just go to the pantry and see if there's a surplus of any kind of fruit and veg that we can bring out with us. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that more in my slides, but I am always looking to gather up things that we might that might be relevant for our outreach and might really reach our student audience.
And I'm seeing food and cookbooks as reoccurring, and those are absolutely great things that we've also found to be effective. So great.
Oh, there's some more coming in.
Oh, wellness, yeah. Oh, awesome.
Oh, wow.
Flag that the Wellness Center has. Yeah, and that's a great suggestion of partnering with others on campus too, and being able to kind of combine those outreach activities. Snack bags. Oh, I love that suggestion for faculty to give out to students in their office or in class. I'm wondering, Joanna, do you have CalFresh Outreach then information on those bags so that then you hand those out and then those students have that information to get application assistance? Great, that's an awesome idea. Well, thank you for all of those suggestions. We sometimes know that there's a lot of stuff that we talk about in terms of unallowability on this contract, and it's always great then to be able to kind of fill in some of those gaps of those other items that we find really helpful, even though that we can't use this funding for that. There's other ways to get creative with campus funding and donations that's always really helpful. So great, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to kind of transition to some of the things that we've learned and some of the things that we know are helpful on our campus, just to kind of give you some insights and ideas. Because everybody's campus processes are different, but we know that sometimes they get a little tricky, so we just wanted to talk through some of those things with you. We work very closely with our Office of Sponsored Programs, and they're the ones who actually oversee our grant. And so on our campus, we always need to be making sure that along with the grant requirements, we're following their policies and procedures as well, especially when it comes to purchasing things. All of you probably have different policies and procedures on your campus, but one of the things that's really good to pay attention to is that timeline of when things can be submitted for a particular period. So as a reminder, this funding, this is a 3-year contract, and it started, well, our contract wasn't signed until February, but technically the federal fiscal year started October 1st. So this contract goes from October 1st of 2018 to September 30th of 2019. So right now we're in Q4 and we're getting close to the end of this fiscal year. And at that point, year 1 will close out. So these funds don't roll over to next year. So any purchases that you want to make using this year's funding have to be made before then. On our end, we just want to make sure that things are purchased before October, but your campus might have other requirements that you need to be following in terms of when is the latest that receipts or invoices can be submitted for reimbursement. So you'll want to make sure that you're following those procedures, because we don't want you to be surprised at the last minute if all of a sudden your campus says, we can't process this because it's too late. So if you're wondering about what those processes are, or if there are any requirements related to that, if there are requirements for what you can be purchasing on top of the grant requirements, or in terms of those timelines, a great person to reach out to is the person who's listed as your fiscal reporter on your contractor information form. So that's the person that's likely helping you with the fiscal reporting process and helping answer questions on your campus end. And they absolutely would be able to answer questions in terms of when is the latest things can get submitted, and are there any other procedures that should be being followed? Are there any specifics in terms of what they need as backup? And so they're a great person to check with just to make sure that there are no surprises at the end of the year. And so they're also a great person then to help guide you in terms of that process of ordering. And if you need to fill out any paperwork ahead of time before you make a purchase, or if it might need to get submitted through a purchase order, and they can help you with all of those things, we're more than happy to help guide you on some of that. But since we're not familiar with all those details of all of your procedures, we can kind of give you general information, but your fiscal reporter on your campus will be able to help you answer those questions. I'm going to turn it over to Emily now, and she's going to kind of talk about the specifics of our campus.
Wonderful. Sounds good. Thanks, Naomi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Foxworthy, and I am our CalFresh Outreach Campus Educator. So if you are the main CalFresh Outreach person on your campus, then I'm you. We have the same job. So I just wanted to bring in some very specific details on the purchases that we have made for our campus in the last just, I would say, 3 to 4 months. Sometimes we do get into spend down mode, and so I just wanted to give you some really good products that you could potentially use and make purchases yourself. So we'll move into the next slide, and that is our team doing our CalFresh Night. We had an evening event in the library, and that's how we celebrated our CalFresh Day this past spring semester. When I look at this picture, I do kind of smile, because when I scan quickly, I would say 60% of the stuff on that table is technically unallowable through our CalFresh Outreach contract dollars, which makes the point that you know, we really have to leverage other funding. We really have to look out and what departments are willing to donate. Who can we go to with a very direct ask? Hey, I'm doing an event and I want to buy 4 big bags of pretzels. Can we make that happen? You know, I'm never hesitant to ask when we are feeding students or providing healthy food for students. And I'm always thinking about, all right, our CalFresh Outreach dollars can do our basics, but we want more on top of that. And so I'm always willing to, I never hesitate to reach out. Yes, Naomi.
I would just like to add something to that too. So Emily mentioned that she's estimating about 60% of the stuff on the table, but if you look at those people behind the table, those are allowable. expensive.
Yeah.
So staff time to put on events like this is allowable. And so that's a great way to spend some of these funds too, if you need staff over the summer or starting in fall too. All those, well, maybe not all of them because we have some interns also, but at least a few of those individuals are getting paid to be there using this funding.
Excellent point, Naomi. And that's where the important dollars are being spent. And so we definitely want to leverage, you know, where do we want to put our money? And we want to put it with our trained application assisters, and we want to ask for free food and who's got other fun stuff that we can have. So, yeah, that's a fun picture for our team to share. I learned a little bit this past semester when I went to make my orders on campus. I used external funding through work study or IRA dollars, and I went to make a purchase. I said, okay, I want to order some tablecloths and a canopy, and they said, well, our timelines are different than what we're used to, and our guidelines are different than what you're used to. And so I was told that anything that I ordered through that funding stream had to have our university name on it. So I was ready to just order canopies and tablecloths with just our gorgeous, bright CalFresh logo on it. But then I was told I had to slap another logo on it, and it truly had to be co-branded because we had to have California State University, Chico on it somewhere if we were going to use state dollars. So that's something that was new to me, and that's something that I learned ordering outside of our CalFresh Outreach contract. So really quickly, how I have always seen our dollars in the past is to really create the physical foundation for outreach, meaning get your canopy, get your tablecloth, get your sturdy table, get your chairs, get your physical setup, and then everything that you add on top of that, your food, your giveaways, that is kind of, you know, icing on the cake, if you will. That's where you can ask for extras. That's where you can go with specific donations and have a little bit more fun and freedom with those asks. But I really use our CalFresh Outreach dollars to build our physical base. And so we look really good wherever we are. We look the same wherever we are. But then whatever might be on our table will change and be different just depending on what we have. And I was doing a little bit more thinking about, you know, how relevant we have to be to our college students because we compete with so much on campus. They're walking by and everybody wants to hand them a flyer. Everybody wants to tell them what they've got. And so thinking about how to make your booth, your setup, your outreach look really bright and fresh. I scanned our social media and all the different accounts from the different campuses, and everyone looks so inviting. I love the fruit baskets that are out, kind of the farmer's market vibe that people have. It's so fun to see how different everybody sets up their table and does their table. And I've got a lot of great ideas from following other campuses. So some of the websites that we are tried and true for us that we love to order from, I've had great luck with forimprint.com. They're very used to working with logos, and they give you a preview before you finalize your order. They're very quick, excellent customer service. So I highly recommend forimprint.com. I did our canopy, our razor flags, and our Easy Up from there just this past month or so. Oh, sorry, if you could go back really quick, I'll talk about easyup.com. I really like that brand of pop-ups. They're very durable. I've been through a lot of Easy Ups over the years doing outreach events, and you know, you're lugging them in and out of the car, rolling them across campus, they're getting thrown in a warehouse, or so at this point in my career, I am very much over quality, you know, very much into quality, and so I can really recommend easyup.com, that straight brand, and they've got it is worth the investment in the roller bag, so you can put the canopy in the bag, zip it up tight, and roll it all over campus wherever you need to go. I try to make our setup for our physical outreach as simple and straightforward as we can, so that we can just be wherever we need to be whenever. And then of course, staples.com, that's just easy for us because we have that account set up through our purchasing department. And so if you already have accounts that are set up, go with that, because anything from Staples can be at our office in a day or two. And so just for straight ease, I really like to go with you know, maybe yours is Office Depot or something like that, but go with what you've got set up. That's what when it's just straight, you know, office equipment, but tables and chairs and things like that, of course, are easy to get. And some of the products we love, I've linked there, the canopy that we've ordered, the tablecloths that we've ordered, the actual tables, and then we're trying something new this year with these razor flags. They've been a great success for us out at our farmers market outreach, and so I thought I'd try to bring those back onto campus. These are just the proofs that I received from forimprint.com when I ordered from there, and you'll see how we kind of had to juggle this co-branding thing, and it definitely did not end up how I had envisioned us looking, but that's okay. I wanted us to be, all of our materials to be black with that really bright CalFresh background, and it should just pop. And so everywhere you look, it's black with the CalFresh logo, black with the CalFresh logo. But we did have to throw in our CHC stuff there, and it kind of got a little sideways, but that's okay. And so for the razor flag, I wasn't able to co-brand anything. So because I was using state dollars, I had to go with our CHC logo. I was forced to pick that one instead of our CalFresh one. So, you know, sometimes you just got to roll with it and make the best choices that are in front of you. But we're very excited to kind of be refreshed for this next fall semester.
And Danielle, it looks like, has a question. If we have a tablecloth with the old CalFresh logo, do we need to update our tablecloth?
This is Aaron, and no, not necessarily. It's kind of up to you if you know, you want to update or change colors or do something a little different. So yeah, if it's working for you, you know, stick with what you got. There's no requirement to change that.
Yeah, great question,
yeah.
Danielle.
That is a great question. And, you know, we were really ready this year. The timing was right for us. We were waiting and holding out for that new logo, but we were really ready for a materials refresh. And so we found that with the new logo, kind of getting everything clean and updated, and just to look really, you know, simple was definitely a goal that we had. So this was good timing for our team to spend those dollars. Okay, so now we have it. We've got a little question here for you. So in the chat box, will you please tell us which of the following is our new CalFresh logo?
Got a few threes. There may have been a few Easter eggs before that you
yeah. It's looking good. Oh, I like the 4 with the LOL. I know, I like the sunglass guy too. So yes, our new logo is number 3, CalFresh Food. That's who we are. There are four different kind of streams, but we want to be sure that our CalFresh outreach is always under the CalFresh Food logo. So that's the one we want to be using.
And just to add in, as far as you know, changing the logo, it is kind of nice because the new logo, like if you use the white or the black one, you can really pair it with your campus colors, or even your campus logo if that's a requirement, or if you just want it, or maybe you have your own logo for your basic needs initiative, or etc. So it's real nice to have it that clean color, because then you can put it on, say, a red background or a green background or whatever background you know, your campus color is. So yeah, so that was just something that we would encourage. And a question here might be, well, how do you get these new logos? So I will show you. So online, you will actually go to CDSS, and we also have this on our link on our own website at CHC, so you can go there to find this. But when you go down here, you'll see that there's CalFresh logos right here. And so if you click on it, it'll basically download a file. You'll have to unzip that file, and then in there will be all kinds of logos in different types of formats. So you can use it in different programs if you're editing things. So yeah, it's super helpful. And if you have any issues with that, just let us know. We're happy to help assist with that.
Can I add something in really quick,
Yeah.
Karen? And also, I know we've mentioned a few times about that your campus might have some requirements too in terms of branding. Most campuses have a whole branding guide of anything that goes out has to meet certain requirements. And so there's likely somebody on your campus too that you might want to reach out to make sure you're meeting those requirements. The other thing that they'd then be able to help you with is to make sure that you have high resolution versions of any logos that you're required to use. Because if you're going to be printing things like canopies, you want to make sure that you have those high resolution versions of them.
Yeah, that's a great point. When you sometimes submit an order, the company may not always catch that they should, but you know, that always can happen. Then you get a logo that's like really pixelated and doesn't look great. So we don't want that to happen. All right, so speaking of branding guidelines, there's also branding guidelines for CalFresh food, and they're new. So that's something to be aware of. It's still really simple. So if you want to get more in depth, I'll show you where you can find that branding guideline. But to keep it simple, there's really 3 things that are super important, and that's having the CalFresh logo, having your drop-in assist information, and then making sure that you have that tagline, which I have bold here. And so I'll quickly show you where you can find that branding or the guideline. And it's actually right where the logos are. So right above it, you have the CalFresh style guide. If you click that, you'll be able to download it. And it's a PDF. It has colors and all different types of things that you can use if you want to kind of brand it that way. Of course, you know, you can always just do the 3 important elements, which we had highlighted here. So as an example, here's one for our own campus. And so as you can see, we have the CalFresh logo, we've got the drop-in assist information and contact information that's really important. We even have social media information, and then we have that important tagline at the bottom. And so those are really the important things to keep in mind when it comes to that. Next, we're going to shift gears and go into the USDA Justice for All poster, which some of you may have got emails about. So basically, this is a poster that basically should be posted in your CalFresh outreach area where you're doing outreach. And it's basically just a poster so that applicants or oh, yes, we can give you a copy of the flyer in this last slide. We'll make sure to get that to you. So for the Justice for All poster, basically you'll post this in your outreach area. It has information on how to file a discrimination complaint. And so that's really important to make sure that's up so that if applicants you know, feel like they've been discriminated against, they can go to the link that is in the poster, and that'll also be in that email that was sent to you. And if you didn't receive that, or if you needed to send it again, just let us know. And with your CalFresh outreach budget, you can print these posters. It needs to be at least 11 by 17. If it's a temporary location, I am not 100% sure. I think that would be beyond that would be a burden. So I don't think that USDA would consider that to be an issue. If it's somewhere you're doing outreach at the same, so if you're doing it consistently at the same location, then that would be maybe where you'd have it. But if it's changing and it's outside, I don't think you would need that, no. So yeah. All right, and now we're kind of wrapping up, but we want to make you aware of some upcoming webinars. Here at the center, we have launched the CSU Basic Needs Training Resource Center, and these basically we've developed resources to help campuses kind of elevate some of their basic needs impact and food security resources. So there's 2 upcoming webinars that will kind of be go over that, and we also have it on our website. So we've got our basic needs Training Resource Center here, and if you click on each link, it'll go to a page with a video, and then actually has some resources that you can use. So that is kind of useful for a number of topics, and so we just wanted to highlight that. Also, just a side note, Emily is the actor and voiceover for the videos, and she did a phenomenal job. And so just want to give her a shout out for that.
I'm keeping my day job. Don't worry, everyone.
So yeah, so that's some upcoming webinars, and those should be some invites sent your way. Next, we're going to have some questions. So are there any other questions that came up during the webinar that you would like answered? We'll give you a couple minutes. I have one while we're getting started for Naomi. Do the CalFresh Outreach funds roll over?
They do not. That is a great question and always a great reminder. So this is a 3-year contract that started October 1st, 2018, and it goes for 3 years. But each of those 3 years is a separate fiscal year. And so again, we're following the federal fiscal year, so it doesn't align with anybody else's timeframes in terms of their state funding, which just ended. So I know a lot of you all are working on wrapping up your state fiscal year and closing everything out. So we're about getting ready to do that for all of our projects because most of them follow the federal fiscal year. And so this year will end September 30th. And after that, that year's budget is done. So those funds can't roll over into the next year. And so then we'll start looking at your year 2 budget and using that for the next year.
Looks like we don't have any questions yet, but if anyone has any, feel free to pop in. Oh, Emily has one.
I've got a question just because I feel like I have all of my colleagues at my fingertips, and I'd like a little help with, you know, I feel like the student or college population is very different than somebody who's attending a health fair or, you know, that is intentionally looking for swag. They kind of find enjoyment about collecting pens or notepads or magnets for the fridge or things like that, but I definitely feel like that is not of interest to our college students. I would love to hear if there are any specific products that people on their campus have noticed go really well for college students. I've got kind of in my head to keep our items around food, for example, reusable utensil set, reusable straws, even reusable plates or cups or things like that that students could really use in their home cooking setups. Does anyone have any, I hate the word swag because it's not really that, but does anyone have good swag ideas for our college students that have been fun giveaways?
That again wouldn't be allowed on this funding.
Thank you, Naomi. Yes, exactly.
That would are great in combination with this funding.
That is exactly my question. Thank you, Naomi. Oh, aprons. Oh, measuring. See, look at this. Measuring cup set, aprons. Love that. Our students are excited and wanting to, you know, explore cooking, and so I really encourage everyone to keep their swag items, their unallowable swag items around that cooking and food theme. I think that that's really fun. Okay, thank you. I'm on to that measuring cup set idea. I love it. Thank you.
All right.
And as a reminder, we're always available as things come up. If you have questions later on about what we talked on this webinar, or if you have specifics that you'd like to talk through individually, we are always available by phone or email. We could set up Zoom calls with you one-on-one if you have specific questions about allowability or purchasing that you'd like to talk through. We're always more than happy to help.
And just a reminder that this is being recorded, and so we will upload this in the next couple of days, and we will get it over to our YouTube channel. So if you're ever in need, or you have someone that you know that missed it that wanted to catch up, you can just go to our Center for Healthy Communities and go to the videos, and it will be, you can see some of the latest ones here. So that's kind of a great resource to look for. Or you can ask, you know, your program manager or fiscal analyst, and we're happy to kind of send you that link as well. So I think that's about it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type it in. We'll hang out for a few minutes longer. But otherwise, thanks for joining us, and have a great day.